will always know where he stands, and they will. People respect that. He won, and he ran for Congress and won in the Republican district, and he's shown that he can work across the aisle. He can unite people all across the state.
Now, looking forward to November, what do you think the campaign has to do in order to beat Toomey? Now, Specter had a history of appealing to the moderate voters. Now, what do you think that Sestak has to do in order to beat Toomey?
Well, I mean, we're going to keep doing the same thing. What we're going to do is we've run a very policy-oriented campaign, and what you're going to see against Pat Toomey is a clear distinction. Pat Toomey believes that we should go backward to the same policies that brought us to the brink of depression. Joe Sestak thinks we need to move forward to the kind of change that's put us on the path to recovery. He's looking forward to putting his record of serving this nation for 31 years in the Navy and fighting for working families down in Congress against Pat Toomey's record as one of the most conservative members of the House.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, Joe, and again, congratulations. That is it from here. Sestak, it seems, has unseated five-term U.S. Senator Specter. Now we'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thank you, Joscelyn.
Okay.
Let's stay in this race now. We're going to go to Philadelphia, where Arlen Specter, we're told, is at the podium. There he is. Let's listen in.
I thank an extraordinary team, both in my Senate office and on this campaign staff. My wife, Joan, always at my side. Four-term city councilwoman. Had she been the candidate, she'd be making a victory speech now. I thank our son Shannon. Who ran a perfect campaign, and I thank Tracy, who organized and has been in the trenches, and four powerful campaigners who have traveled the state: Sylvie, Perry, Lily, and Hattie. And here they come on cue. They like to be introduced separately. I thank the President for his support, and Vice President Biden, and Governor Rendell, and Senator Casey, and an extraordinary staff helping me to run the Senate office. Scott Hoflish, the Chief of Staff, and I don't know why he got more applause than I did, but he deserves it. And Mike Oscar in Philadelphia, and Adrian Baker Green, Mary and Andy Wallace in Scranton, and Stan in Pittsburgh, and Mary in Erie, and Melissa in Harrisburg. Tremendous office operation. And I thank my campaign workers who did an extraordinary job. Chris Nicholas and Chris Matola, and really a cast of thousands behind us in the campaign. It's been a great privilege to serve the people of Pennsylvania. And it's
Thank you, Arlen!
And it's been a great privilege to be in the United States Senate, and I'll be working very, very hard for the people of the Commonwealth in the coming months. Thank you all.
All right. Well, chance of Arlen there as we see an end of an era, really. And now you can see Pat Toomey.
The Senate winner on the Republican side speaking in Hanover Township tonight. Right now, let's listen to him.
Thank you so much. Listen, we've got a lot to celebrate, and there's a few things I'd like to talk about tonight. But first, before we get to that, there's someone very, very special that I want to give a very special thanks to. She happens to be the most important person in my life, and an incredible source of strength and support. And without her full support, I couldn't begin to be doing what I'm doing. She also happens to be a fantastic mom, and some of you may know that recently she's had a pretty strenuous effort of her own, and I am thrilled to report that the results of all her hard work have paid off even more handsomely than this campaign in the form of a 7-pound, 2-ounce, beautiful, healthy, happy baby boy. She is, of course, my wonderful wife, Chris, and I want to say a big thank you, Chris. Now, while we're at it, I have to, of course, introduce our older two children. And here you see Bridget Kathleen. You can wait. And this is Patrick Joseph. And you may remember them from the cameo appearance that they put in a recent TV ad. I thought they did pretty well. What did you think? Well, listen, this is just a terrific night to be a Pennsylvania Republican, isn't it? Yeah. Absolutely. I want to say first, just a short time ago, I had a conversation with Peg Luxick. Peg called, and she was very gracious in her concession. And I think that she certainly ran an honorable race and a good race, and I appreciate the fact that she participates in the process. So let's hear it for Peg Luxick. And just a few minutes ago, I had a conversation with the Attorney General, Tom Corbett. And I want to tell you that I am looking forward to working with Tom very closely. He and I will be together in Pittsburgh tomorrow. We'll be campaigning across this Commonwealth, and I'll be working hard to make sure that Tom Corbett is the next governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I can honestly say I can't remember a time when I felt like our party is more unified than I feel like it is tonight. I think we're a unified party all across the Commonwealth. I don't think that it's just about a particular set of candidates. I think we're unified by a set of ideas. We're unified by the idea that out-of-control spending, whether it's happening in Harrisburg or Washington, it's got to stop, and we're going to stop it. Yeah! We're unified by the idea that we can create jobs and we can revive our economy, but we're not going to do it by raising taxes and growing government. We're going to do it by creating opportunity in the private sector, the only source of sustainable jobs that we've ever had, and we can do that. And I think we're unified behind the idea that, yeah, we need to make some reforms to a health care system, but we don't need a Washington-run, top-down system that's going to raise our premiums, raise our taxes, reduce our choices, and bust our budget at the same time, do we? No. So we've had a great victory tonight, and I'm thrilled. It was a lot of work, but I'm delighted to be here. But let's face it, our real serious race is in November. That's the race when the voters of Pennsylvania are going to make a big decision. They're going to decide whether we're going to continue down this road of one party having complete control of the government, being captured by the extreme liberal wing of that party and pursuing an extremist agenda, an agenda, by the way, that's giving us the biggest deficits and debt in the history of our country, or whether we're going to move in a different direction, bring some balance to Washington and restore some fiscal sanity. Now, before I talk a little bit more about the challenges we face in November, I do want to say a word about Senator Arlen Specter. It's now evident that Senator Specter has lost the Democratic primary. Let me say a couple of things. First, it's no secret that Senator Specter and I have been competitors of a sort for some time. And it's no secret that we have very substantial differences in policy, substantive differences in the way we view the role of government and other things. But I have to say this. I want to put those aside for just a minute and acknowledge a man who has spent 30 years working very, very hard. He's worked hard for the people of Pennsylvania, and I want to tell you, I will pledge to you that as your senator, I will carry on the work ethic, the tremendous work ethic that Senator Arlen Specter demonstrated for the people of Pennsylvania. And I think we should give a round of applause to Senator Specter. This, of course, brings us to Joe Sestak. And I want to congratulate Joe Sestak on an impressive win tonight. This was an impressive victory. It was a come-from-behind campaign. It was quite a win. I also want to tell you the truth. I'm excited about a campaign with Joe Sestak. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I have a great respect for Joe. I honor the many years he spent serving our country in the United States Navy, and I admire his commitment to his core beliefs. I expect the two of us will have a vigorous, open, and a very, very substantive series of debates. Heck, we've already had 2 debates, and this race is just beginning. And Pennsylvanians deserve that. They deserve a campaign that will be based on the substantive, legitimate policy differences that we have. And I think we're going to have that kind of campaign between myself and Joe Sestak. But one of the things that excites me about a campaign between myself and Joe Sestak is that I believe this race is going to provide probably the clearest contrast, the clearest choice of any race in America. Because not only does Joe Sestak take a very liberal position opposite mine on virtually every major policy issue, but Joe adopts positions that are so extreme, so far to the left, that they're well beyond the consensus even of the Democratic Party. I mean, think about the agenda that they're pursuing in Washington now. Serial bailouts of failing companies, nationalizing whole industries, spending on a staggering scale, unprecedented deficits and debts, cap and trade, card check, and government-run health care. Joe Sestak's for all of that. I'm opposed to that. But Joe...
Pat Toomey speaking tonight in a victory speech in Hanover Township, Northampton County. He is the winner in the Senate race over Peg Luxick, and as you can see right there, he's getting his speech ready to roll out, and you've heard a little bit of it for the fall, as he will plan to take on Joe Sestak, who is the winner tonight. And we are joined again by Chris Borick from Muhlenberg College. And now we've seen this. Dr. Borick, I thought that we might be up till midnight on that Sestak-Specter race. How about you?
I thought it would be a little bit longer than we've seen tonight, but it seemed once the momentum got going for Joe Sestak and that turnout never really materialized in Philadelphia that the Specter camp had hoped for, it looked like the night was over, and really is the end of an era when you think about it. Arlen Specter was elected to office when Dick Thornburg was the governor of Pennsylvania, and Ronald Reagan wasn't even president yet. He came in that same 1980, so it marks a very monumental evening in Pennsylvania politics to see Arlen Specter lose a statewide race and end his political career, at least in terms of elective office. He'll serve out his term, as he said. You can imagine that, given his past, he'll work hard right up to his last day in office. That's the Arlen Specter way, as even Pat Toomey acknowledged this evening. And it was also symbolic. You noticed as Senator Specter was winding down his speech, Pat Toomey was coming on. Their timing, the passing of the torch, at least in those two individuals' careers. And it sets up, as Pat Toomey said, to be a fascinating race come this fall. In many ways, for Democrats who were wondering who would be the stronger candidate, a case can be made that Joe Sestak, rather than Arlen Specter, has some better upside, if you will, in winning votes this fall. It's hard for someone like Arlen Specter in a statewide race to be able to really redefine himself and rebrand him after being in the office for so long and such a strong anti-incumbent mood. Yes, as Pat Toomey said, there's some really big distinctions, and indeed the political tides are going towards Republicans. But for many Pennsylvanians, Joe Sestak is a blank slate, and he's going to be able to fill in the blanks as much as he can while Pat Toomey tries to define him like he did tonight.
Now, we heard Toomey say that he was really looking forward to this. Is this the candidate you think that he was hoping he'd be able to take on? Would he rather face Sestak than Specter?
You know, I think if you really went inside the Toomey camp, there were of split minds. In some ways, you want to take on a wounded candidate, and that wounded candidate right now would have been Arlen Specter. His negatives, over half of Pennsylvanians in most polls said he didn't deserve to be reelected for another term. That's hard to buy if you are looking for a challenger with weaknesses. And so I'm sure there was a side on the Toomey, in the Toomey camp that said they'd like to take on Arlen Specter this fall. As Congressman Toomey said, I think they feel confident that they could put the distinctions between Toomey and Sestak to the voters in a way that voters will come to Toomey's side. But I think it's a lot harder to start with defining someone like Joe Sestak than really having a defined candidate like Arlen Specter to work with. In some ways, I think it's going to pose a different type of challenge for the Toomey campaign.
Well, we see the contours of Toomey's plan to define Joe Sestak right there as more extreme even than the core of the Democratic Party. Does that, from what we know of Joe Sestak's record, is that a fair characterization?
Well, I think just like in most political races, there's a degree of hyperbole there, and you'll hear the same thing from Joe Sestak saying that Pat Toomey is clearly outside the mainstream on the conservative side.
More right than Rick Santorum.
Absolutely, absolutely. So they're going to start trying to paste each other in the way that they want them framed. But to be honest, Joe Sestak has had a record of being a pretty strong liberal vote. If you look on a lot of issues that Pat Toomey did mention, like card check, like cap and trade, the climate change bills, there's a big difference between Pat Toomey and Joe Sestak, and they're going to try to define that. You're going to see Joe Sestak try to define Pat Toomey as someone that his philosophy on deregulation and scaling back government would be to the detriment of problems like what we saw on Wall Street and what we see in the Gulf of Mexico right now in terms of environmental regulation. So you're going to see a very distinct battle in terms of philosophies and ideologies come this fall.
You know, I mentioned Rick Santorum. I think I can't put words in the mouth of the Toomey campaign, but they probably would want to be the non-Santorum conservatives. Santorum ended up having quite a lot of negatives, although probably, do you think, try to tack center a good bit?
Absolutely, Rob. This is an interesting thing, and I think Pat Toomey's been very effective at doing this to date. What you've seen him do is he has his credentials totally built within the Republican primary right now among conservatives. He's a darling of the conservative movement. He does not have to engage in a lot of the culture wars and culture battles to win those voters. They are his. Therefore, he has room to go to the center. He's done so, supporting the nomination of Justice Sotomayor and making actions like that. So you're going to see those type of movements. He doesn't, again, have to pander to the right because the right believes in him. It's going to give him room to move to the middle. And the timing couldn't be better. He is a fiscal conservative in an era when fiscal conservative policies are very popular. Maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Pat Toomey was too far to the right for Pennsylvania politics. I think his timing is pretty good to be running in 2010.
Will be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But thanks for the analysis, Dr. Borick. We'll touch base again. We have some races we have not looked at in a bit, and perhaps a few we haven't seen at all. Let's take a look. Well, of course, here's one of the big ones for tonight.
Yeah, this is obviously for the governor's race, and Honorado here been declared the winner. Not a big surprise. A lot of folks expecting that to happen, and as expected, Honorado is going to be the Democrats' choice come November.
And that's for the governor's side, Democratic side. Let's go back to the state legislature for a moment. The State House 137, Dertinger-Scagliotta. This is the vacant Rich Crusella seat. Very close race. And Dertinger hanging on at this point by just about 70 votes. That's about it. It's a very tight one for the Democratic race, so we'll keep an eye on that in District 137. There's a Republican race there as well.
That's right.
Of course, we just saw that load up once again. But we have the Republicans as well, of course, because this is an open seat.
That's right, and we are looking at the 131st District Republicans right now. This is for Karen Beyer, and as you can see, Justin Simmons here pulling the upset over the incumbent Karen Beyer, and you have to think this is somewhat of a surprise. I mean, I know Karen Beyer no doubt knew she had a race on her hands, but this is one of those instances where we're seeing one of the incumbents being pushed aside, and this time by one of those Tea Party candidates. So this is one of the interesting ones that people are keeping an eye on.
Yes. All right, we'll get back to that. That's not completely tallied, but it's not looking good for Karen Beyer. Now 138, District 138 special election to fill a seat. Craig Daly left to become a judge, and so Marcia Hahn is cruising to victory, it would appear, over Democrat Corey Miller. That would keep that seat in Republican hands. Craig Daly was a Republican state representative. That is to finish Daly's term through the end of this year.
All right, we're going to focus on the governor's race once again. We're going to head out to Tom Corbett headquarters. We're told that Tom Corbett is now at the podium.
For all the work that you've done today, but also over the years, and I'll repeat that here in a moment. We could not be doing what we're doing tonight without your support. And tonight, we start a journey. We start a journey to begin to take Pennsylvania back. And tonight I want to invite all of you, Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, to join me in this effort to rebuild our Commonwealth and to put the people of Pennsylvania first. You know, in 2008, we all heard this message across the country of hope and change. Well, I can tell you, in 2010, I've been traveling all over Pennsylvania, and I've heard a new word, a new message, this one from the people: enough. It's enough of Washington, enough of Harrisburg, enough of taxation, enough of spending, and yes, enough of Ed Rendell. The people of Pennsylvania made it clear to me that they want real change, and they want a governor in Pennsylvania who will bring real reform, honesty, integrity, and leadership to the governor's office. And I stand here before you tonight, more committed than ever to lead this great Commonwealth, to unify our citizens behind a common purpose. And that common purpose is simple: to make Pennsylvania great once again. I want to take a moment to thank you and the hundreds of thousands of people across Pennsylvania and all the voters of Pennsylvania who voted for me and showing me overwhelming support that I received today. Well, thanks, because today we begin our new journey. We begin a new path that we will all travel together. Before that, Sue and I want to thank you for your support through the years, from 2003 to today. Your hard work, your dedication have been invaluable to me and to Sue and to my entire family. And for that, we are grateful. And before I go any further, I certainly have to thank the woman who's been with me for 37 years, my wife, Susan. And if you have heard her speak, you know that she's a secret weapon when she's out there. I also want to thank my kids, Tom and Katie, and my soon-to-be son-in-law, Gerald, for all their hard work that they have been doing. They have to put up with Dad running all around. And I pop into Philadelphia, I see Kate and I see Gerald, and Tom's working here. They've done a great job, not only as kids, but a great job as adults. And they are going to do a great job for us for the rest of this election. And I can't tell you how proud I am to be their parent, to be their father. I also want to thank the staff of the Attorney General's office for the hard work that they do, protecting the people of Pennsylvania day in and day out, and the staff of the campaign. We would not be here today without the work that they have been doing day in and day out. And a lot of people you don't see, they're working till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. You see me out there, but they're back in the office doing that work every day, and I certainly appreciate it. Would you please give them a round of applause? I would also like to congratulate my opponent, Sam Rohr, on a very spirited campaign. I believe we share a message of change that is desperately needed in Harrisburg, a change that focuses on restoring fiscal discipline, lowering taxes, reducing regulatory burdens, and creating good, family-sustaining jobs. But now it is time for us to unite and work together to fix Harrisburg right now. I believe that we can all agree that during the last 7 years, our state has spiraled downwards. We're at the bottom of every job creation list and at the top of every tax burden list. Spending has increased by 40%, and despite a projected deficit of $1 billion, the governor is still calling for increased spending. His solution has always been raise your taxes. Taxes on our families, taxes on our seniors, and taxes on our job creators. As the next governor of Pennsylvania, I'm taking taxes and tax increases off the table. And that's why I signed a no-tax pledge. We need to force Harrisburg to go back to the drawing board and to enact meaningful reform and not increase the burden on you, the taxpayers of Pennsylvania. We need real change, and that only comes from real leadership and real action. And that's the kind of governor I'm going to be for you and for all of Pennsylvania. You and Pennsylvanians deserve to keep more of your money, and government needs to learn how to do more with less. That's how we can truly restart our economy, with fiscal discipline, limited government, and free enterprise. We need a governor with the proven leadership and the commitment to doing what is in the best interest of Pennsylvania and Pennsylvanians. And it starts with fixing Harrisburg. My record clearly demonstrates that I'm determined to restore the public's trust in Harrisburg and in state government. I will root out corruption, waste, fraud, and abuse. And I will change the culture of Harrisburg to finally get us back on track and moving in the right direction. That's why during my first week in office, I will send the legislature a sweeping reform plan to end business as usual. And it's time to get serious about lowering taxes and make Harrisburg remember that it's your money, not theirs. As we fix Harrisburg, we will create jobs. As governor, I will encourage the private sector to develop job growth. And I will remember that government does not create jobs. Pennsylvanians create jobs. You create good, family-sustaining jobs. And yes, you can apply to that, Charlie. Thank you.
Tom Corbett, the victorious Republican gubernatorial candidate tonight, and he's setting up to face Dan Honorado, the Democrat, this fall.
All right, a lot of the race is wrapping up. We're going to continue our coverage, but first we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
All new. You're watching 69 News Election Central. Now from the anchor desk, here's Rob Vaughn and Wendy Davis.
All right, and welcome back to this election night coverage.
And one of the big races, of course, the Senate race where Arlen Specter has been ousted. After 30 years in the Senate, Joe Sestak takes it. 84% of the district's reporting now. And on a percentage basis, that looks to be about 54% for Joe Sestak to 46%. The gap has just been growing as the evening has gone on. And Dr. Chris Borick from Muhlenberg College has been with us and watching this and watching that gap grow along with us. And Dr. Borick, so interesting. I guess in the final analysis, what do you think this says about Arlen Specter? Some people have said there was some Specter fatigue here. Is that one way to look at it?
I think that's probably a fair estimate, Rob. It's clearly, as we're seeing around many races in the state and nationally, a tough year to be an incumbent, and anything associated with Washington, D.C. right now doesn't appeal very much to voters. And really, to be honest, when you look at Arlen Specter, nobody speaks more about being inside the Beltway or part of the Washington establishment than Arlen Specter. He's been there for decades and decades. It's a hard hill to climb for a candidate right now to be in that shoes. And then let's go to the really big vulnerability he had. He was a Republican for 40 years running in a Democratic primary. These are Democratic voters. These are individuals that are Democratic for a reason. And to have a candidate just drop in at the last minute, that's a lot to expect, even a well-established candidate like Arlen Specter. And so it was a tough road. And then when you had Joe Sestak, I think in a very, very powerful ad, show his words that he was, you've taken out of context or not, that he was changing parties to be reelected, and to have George Bush and Rick Santorum on a stage saying good things about Arlen Specter, pretty damning evidence to a Democratic Party electorate.
All right, Dr. Borick, thanks so much for that. We are waiting for Joe Sestak, in fact, to speak at Valley Forge Military College, and he has come to the podium. So let's see what Joe Sestak has to say tonight about his big victory in the Senate race. But he's still walking up to the podium now. Valley Forge Military Academy and College, I think, is the proper name. And we're going to go to that picture there. There it is, a live picture, a wildly happy crowd at Valley Forge as they wait for their man, the Admiral, Joe Sestak, former congressman from the 7th Congressional District. A couple of terms in Congress is all he has served, but made quite a name for himself in recent times and spent millions in the advertisements that Dr. Borick was just referring to. And I think they're looking at a video, perhaps, of his life and career as they prepare to welcome him to the stage. They have it all planned for quite a big victory speech.
You're seeing some type of silhouette there. I don't know if that's him. He was making his way up. Perhaps, and there he is.
That was people in the way of the video screen.
There he is, though, coming behind and making his way to the stage with his family. Obviously, a very happy crowd there. Many folks still, calling this a big upset. As Dr. Borick said, it's an end of an era as we say goodbye to Arlen Specter, who's been representing Pennsylvania for 30 years, a lifetime for a lot of voters.
That's right.
Okay, you all came to see Alex.
Go on, Joe.
Thank you, Pennsylvania. And thank you to everyone who's here tonight. This election is about you. It's about you and everyone in this great Commonwealth who stood up and wanted diverse voices heard. This is what democracy looks like. A win for the people. Over the establishment, over the status quo, even over Washington, D.C. I will never forget that it was the people of Pennsylvania that made it happen tonight. And I will work so hard to earn their trust and their confidence. But it should come as no surprise to anyone that people want to change. When I went to Congress just a few years ago, After 31 years in the wonderful United States Navy, I found too many career politicians are a bit too concerned about keeping their jobs rather than serving the public, rather than helping people. In the Navy, we're held accountable for our actions. And we should expect no less from our politicians in Washington, D.C. That accountability has been missing for far too long, and I want to help bring it back. And that's why I'm running for the United States Senate. Over the next 6 months, you're going to hear two very different philosophies. There are some who want to go backwards. They want to go back to the failed policies of George Bush. To letting Wall Street do whatever it wants. Or just saying no to progress. On the other hand, I think we know that we're in pretty tough times. But we know that we can go forward. We know that we must go forward. But to do so, we need a public servant, not a politician. We need someone who's there out of core convictions and core beliefs and has the courage of his conviction to do what's right for the working families of Pennsylvania. It's time. It's just time for a new generation of leadership that we can count on to leave behind politics as usual. And to remember about working families of Pennsylvania right here. And to even stand up to one's own party when that party doesn't get it right for us. That's what people are looking for. Republicans, independents, and Democrats. Look, there's a lot of people I want to thank tonight. But before anyone else, anyone, I would ask everyone to join me in a moment of silence for the men and women who serve our nation in the cloth of this nation, our service members overseas, in harm's way. Semper Fi. And yes, again, Semper Fi. And now I want to say something about someone who's truly courageous. Arlen Specter. He has devoted his entire life to public service, and he and his lovely wife, Joan, deserve our thanks for that. We've disagreed about a number of things, but we're Americans. But he has done good things for Pennsylvania.